Alright, hey Stat 113 people. So we're gonna pick up in this video just where we left off the last time from the confidence interval, and now move into a hypothesis test for the mean. So we're following the same structure that we did for proportions, except now we're obviously moving kind of quicker because we've already seen all this type of stuff before. We're gonna ditch the GPA example for now and move into a different example that we'll work with for this one sample hypothesis test, and we'll continue to work with for our introduction to regression, which is our next topic. And so the data that we're gonna use is provided by our textbook. And so it's about student evaluations of professors and the physical appearances of professors. And so what these researchers did was they kind of collected some student course evaluations from the University of Texas at Austin. And in addition to those course evaluations, they also asked students, kind of a separate panel of students, so students that the professors didn't have in class, to rate their attractiveness using some different metrics. And so for now, we're ignoring that attractiveness variable, and we're just going to focus on the course evaluation scores. And so the first question that we're going to answer with this data is we want to know whether the average evaluation score at the University of Texas at Austin is different than a 4.0. So we could see from the histogram on the following page that the evaluation scores seem to be on a scale of like 1 to 5, with 5 being the max. We also have just the first 3 cases in the data set, and so some of the variables we have are their score, their rank, their ethnicity, their gender, their language, how old they were, and this average attractiveness rating. Again, for now, we're kind of ignoring everything else because we have a model with no predictors, and we're just going to focus on score. The mean score in our sample is a 4.174, standard deviation of 0.544, and the total number of courses in our sample is 463. So in this video, we're just going to go through the prepare step. And this step for testing whether the evaluation scores are different than 4.0 on average. At the beginning, we're just kind of reviewing a little bit of stuff we've already talked about, so I'm going to move kind of quickly. So the sample mean in this example was 4.174. Remember, you could use the mu with the little hat on its head or x bar. Our sample standard deviation was also given in the problem, and our sample size is also given. We've already talked about how to write out this population model, where y is course score, as well as this kind of boring, or I won't call it boring, that's not nice, but this basic fitted model with no predictors. So this will be kind of the last time that we're using this model without any sort of predictors in it. Remember, our prediction using this model for any case is nice and easy because it's going to be the same. So for the first case in the table, so that's this row, it's 4.174. We could also find the residual for this case, so it looks like the first observation had a score of 3.4. And so the residual would be 3.4 minus 4.174, and that's going to end up being a negative 0.744. Or sorry, negative 0.774. Okay, So that's kind of review-y type stuff. What we haven't talked about yet is how to write these null and alternative hypotheses, and we're going to write them in words as well as notation. And so remember when we did this for proportions, so for proportions, we were testing to see whether some proportion was different than some number. And those were our null and alternative hypotheses. This isn't going to be that much of a jump from that. Our null hypothesis, which we said was usually a statement of equality, is now just going to be about the mean. So our null hypothesis is that the mean is 4, while the alternative hypothesis is that the mean is different than 4. So why 4? Well, I'm just going to jump back to the bottom of page 7, and that just comes from our original question of interest. So we want to know whether the average evaluation score at this university is different than 4. Because that's our question of interest, 4 goes here. In words, we might just say something like, well, the null would be the mean course evaluation rating at this school. Is 4, while the alternative, and I'm going to use these quotes just like we used in class, and that's going to be that the mean is different than 4. Okay, and so we're going to take a pause there, and the next video will cover the remaining steps, the check, the calculate, as well as the conclude.